You're joining Walgreens in the middle of a pandemic where Walgreens is really key in administering vaccines. And I know because all of our entire show got ours from a Walgreens, but that's a lot of pressure. There's stuff with J&J that was going on. This wasn't like an easy entry.
Not at all. But this was intentional for me. I was having a great time at Starbucks. It's a beautiful company, very mission driven. But this came to me and I said, this is a time for me to step into something that I've always wanted to do, and that's to have impact, make change happen, lead something that would leave an impression on people's lives. And as I've seen people, get their first shot and they look back at our pharmacists and they are crying and in tears, I know I've made the right decision and this is the right place for me to be. And I've jumped in pretty quick. I didn't take much of a break between Starbucks and Walgreens.
How do you make a decision on where to go? Is it gut? Is it your brain? Is it your heart? Is it faith? Is it your family? How do you choose?
For me, my gut is usually a very good barometer for me. And I felt good about this one, actually from the very beginning. I knew it wasn't going to be easy by any means, but I did know that my gut felt right. And then the second is my heart. And I knew what I would be able to do and impact in this role. So once I got that connection, it was full speed ahead for me.
Your parents, as you've talked about, didn't go to college, but they wanted to make sure that all their kids did. How did they make that clear to you that that was the plan?
Absolutely. It was from day one. There was no other option. We talked about this every day. It was interesting because my family would prioritize education. And we always had to do one other thing. So we all had an instrument that we played or a sport. So for me, mine was violin and piano. And we had to do that. And so constantly it was a conversation about not what grade you got, but what are you learning and how much are you doing at school? And, my dad worked 3 jobs, but for every event that I had in my life, he was always there. And I remember one event where I thought I was gonna get, the gold ribbon, and I ended up getting an honorable mention. That's the other color ribbon. And my dad was still there, and I remember feeling guilty because I was like, he left work early, one of the 3 jobs, and all I got was an honorable mention, and it broke my heart. But he was so proud. It was just as if I just won the whole, award. And it's things like that that has made me, I think, a better mom because I know what my dad sacrificed for me. And it sticks with me.
Why did you decide that Spelman College was where you wanted to go?
So, it was a few things. One, I have one sister that's closest to me in age, and she really wanted me to leave the state of Michigan. She wanted me to do something different. And, when you're first generation, your parents, they can't help you with your college applications. So my older sister really talked me into it, but then there was a second person. My college counselor for high school was a Spelman graduate, Dr. Geneva Carter. And she brought me in her office one day and said, I think you need to think different about where you're going to go to school. Because I was going to apply to one school, Lawrence Tech. And I was going to go there, and then I was going to work in the automotive industry. I had it all figured out.
'Cause that's where your parents worked.
That's where my parents worked, in the auto industry. And she saw something different in me. And at that time, there was no internet. So I'm looking at the catalog, and I see these beautiful green trees, and I said, I'm in. Let's I think I want to do this. And my sister helped me apply to Spelman College, and then my financial aid package, which was so important so that I could afford to go to school.
Wow. So without the financial aid, would you have been at Spelman?
Wouldn't have happened. At one time, there were 4 of us in college.
Jeez.
And I was number 4. And so by my sophomore year, my parents were like, I know you love it there, but I think once you come home for Christmas, we're going to have to keep you at home. And so I was like, no, I can't leave this place that I'd fallen in love with. And so I went to speak to the college, and lo and behold, because of the community service work that I've done on campus and in the city of Atlanta, there was a private donor who gave me a full scholarship all the way through to graduation.
Well, you have a love affair with this college. This isn't like a normal, I love my school.
No.
Yours is different.
Oh, absolutely. I think sometimes a lot of who I am came from my experience at Spelman. The faculty here nurtured me in a way that I've never seen in my life. My father was diagnosed with cancer my sophomore year. I had organic chemistry, physics, calculus, all, and my dad was really not doing well. And 6 weeks before my graduation, my dad passed away. And the college just rallied around me. And I finished, and I took my exams, and my organic chemistry teacher helped me through. And that doesn't happen every day, and I know that, and I'm just, this is the place where I came alive, I think.
So it's your mom, your dad, and Spelman.
Absolutely. My mom, my dad, and Spelman College.
Wow. Losing your dad in college.
Yeah, not good. Not good. Very hard. His service was, just a few weeks before, and I was taking the GMAT trying to go to graduate school the next day, and I left the funeral and I flew right back to Spelman at the end of the day from his service, and that was quite difficult. I didn't deal with it until maybe a few months after graduation, and I think it was so interesting. I know you're going to laugh at this, but Marvin Gaye passed away, and I was watching that on television, and then I just lost it, right? It just all came back, right? And I was thinking, how does that happen? And it just hit me like a ton of bricks.
It's so funny, my dad died when I was in college, too.
Yeah.
It's a hard
thing.
It's one of the hardest things in the world. You don't realize it, like
No.
You think you're going to be okay, and you got to go back to school, and you got to get back to your books, and then you just sit here and think,
Yes.
Did this moment, and the world goes on.
It goes on, and you feel like you're on a treadmill, and just keep it going, and then life will stop you. It'll put you on hold for a minute, and it did for me.
How often do you think about what he would be thinking of you, like in this moment, maybe?
Oh my God, I clearly know he would be quite excited. He would be. I think about that a lot.
Yeah. It's so funny and weird, but I think, and I wondered this even about myself too, but sometimes when you don't get the atta girl, when you're, you just keep going.
Yes.
And you're not even,
Yes.
I know it's not the reason, but it is one of those things I think about sometimes,
Absolutely.
Am I there yet? Am I there yet?
Right.
Another thing that struck me was you said, you've been quoted this way, but you said, as a Black woman, you're mistaken a lot.
Yes.
Mistaken for what? Describe that.
I'm not the person that will walk in the room and tell you my title, right? I'm just not that person. But when I'm in the room with like-minded people, I would just assume that you would think that I should be here, at least at this point in my life. And, Hoda, it's just amazing to me that sometimes I have to tell people who I am, and I refer often to a situation where I was at a meeting just for CEOs, right? Private attendance, under 25 people. And I had one gentleman ask me constantly, what did I do for a living? Almost like, why are you here, right? And it was so interesting to me because I said to him, this is a CEO function. I'm the CEO at the time of Sam's Club. And he just couldn't understand that. He must have asked me 20 questions like marketing, like sales, was like, no. And so I was just amazed. And that was 2018, 2017. And I'm like, why are you asking me that question? So, and many times, I just find that we are still so underrepresented in so many different places that I understand it. But I feel like I'm on a mission to help people understand that, we're here. We're here to stay. Don't question my character or my being. I'm here.
Seem to have, because I think if people did that to me constantly, I think I might be kind of pissed off.
Yes.
But you seem like you have this, and one of the things I admire about you is you have this refreshing, almost like, like there's no shield up. There's no who do you think I am? You don't have that.
No, I look at these moments as teachable moments. I think, I've been put in this position, in these positions for a reason. I think that, quite honestly, God has led me here. I'm here for a reason. And so I look at these opportunities as a real opportunity to teach and train. And so what can I tell you about who I am and what I do?
How did you teach the guy who asked you 10 questions what you did for a living?
It was so funny because I happened to be the keynote speaker for the private luncheon. And so someone was reading my bio before I approached the dais, and he said, talked all about me, and then I assumed my position on the stage, and I was right in front of him. He was like the seat right in front of me, and I just saw his face just totally drain, and I just kind of looked at him like, hello.
I'm here.
I'm here, right?
Have you ever been told that you actually have advanced because of your race?
I have had several similar comments to that, like, as if I'm a token. I have had that. I've had the comments that, you're not as smart as you think you are. I've had a lot of those, Hoda, and they've been painful, but they've been energizing at the same time. They really give me energy because I feel as if I'm going to teach a couple of lessons, through this, and I'm going to be my best. And so, when people ask, you're taking on a new responsibility, the first thing I do is I study like mad, right? I'm an agile learner. I constantly read, learn, and train because, sometimes there's not somebody sitting next to you saying, let me tell you this, let me show you this. That doesn't happen for me. It falls on myself. And so I've been that person that's had to self-develop. And I've taken on that responsibility.
Wow. So do those little dings, those little ouches that happen where do you put that?
It takes me a minute sometimes, right? Because it comes into my head and it goes down deep, and I have to sit with myself for a second and think about how I want that to make me better, right? But I don't glaze over it. I can't glaze over it because I think it shows up in different places, and it will cause me to have an outburst at some point if I don't deal with it. So I try to deal with it as best I can.
Okay. So when you were in college, you were a scientist.
Yes.
So you went from scientist to business, and I literally was like, how do those two sync up?
Yes.
What do those two have in common, going from the science world into the business world? Do they have anything in common?
They actually do. So I did start off as an organic chemist for Kimberly-Clark, and I was in long-range research. So I was that bench chemist, doing all those kinds of assignments. But what really ties it together is when you're a scientist, you're curious, you ask a lot of questions, you're an analytic, so you look at data, and that translates into business. And some of the best business leaders are those who really, challenge the status quo, think about what's next, think about what's around the corner and around the corner from that, and sometimes can be a visionary. And I think that's the translation between being a scientist and being a business leader.
Yeah, and I guess decisions, because some people have struggled with decisions.
Yes, and so, it's really interesting being a very decisive woman. I've been told that I'm can be rigid, stubborn, but, I make a decision and I stick and move. I have to. And a lot of men do that too, but I haven't heard them talked about in the same way.
It's just, I think what's interesting too is you went to Walmart,
yes,
CEO of Sam's Club, first woman, first African American.
Yes.
A lot of firsts. When you obviously try to expand your reach, when you are hiring people, Roz, what are you looking for? Like, what can people take from this?
Sure. So, when I'm hiring people, that's really the most important work I can do when I take on these jobs. And I really look for, first of all, diversity of thought when I'm building a team. And a lot of times that comes with diversity of race and gender. And so I really try to build a team that can work together. But what I look for is what's inside the person, because these jobs are tough and they're hard. And at some point, their inner is going to become their outer experience. And I want to know about that. I tease that out. I try and tease it out in our discussions and ask questions and poke a little bit so I can see what they're made of.
What question? Is there a question you asked?
You know, I ask some questions that, you know, sometimes people might feel uncomfortable about. Like, you know, I'll ask them about, you know, tough decisions. What do you do when there's tough decisions? You know, how do you make the trade-off between when it's time to make that decision when your daughter has to go to a soccer game and I'm the CEO, I'm going to call you on the weekend. What's your response to me?
Yeah.
And I want them to tell me the response is, Roz, let me call you back 40 minutes, I'm going to watch this play and we can talk. That's what I'm looking for, right? And so, but they'll give me the other answer and I'll lean in and say, the other answer is like, oh, I'll call you right away, so what would you need? And I'm like, that's not the answer I'm looking for, because you know what? I'm going to go to the soccer game. So, you know, I'll be at my kid's soccer game. So I want you to be at your kid's soccer game. So tell me about that. How do you make those big trade-offs? Because that's what these jobs are about.
I think people would be shocked to hear this.
They would be.
Yeah.
And I think I throw people off when I say that. And it's not the woman or the mother thing, because there are men that have just as much dedication. And I want them to have that dedication, because these jobs are tough. The other thing about that is that if you're not your whole person at work, I get half of your performance. And I want you to be your whole person at work. I really do. Because if you can do that, you know, if you have the jubilation of having seen your child do something great, the next day you can come in and just give it all, right? And so I know that. I experience that. I mean, my daughter won track regionals this week. I mean, I'm high on the hog, you know, I'm really happy about that, you know? So that brings me great joy. And if I come to work a little bit on the tip of my toes, it's just, it's me, it's better.
I still remember this. It was so crazy, and I can't believe it caused such a silly dust-up, but you were doing what a lot of CEOs were doing, which is talking to CNN and the Wall Street Journal and all those places about what was going on, and I think it was Poppy Harlow who asked you about diversity, and you said something simple like, diversity makes for good business, or something plain.
Exactly. I did.
And it turned into a backlash that I hadn't seen before.
I had neither. I was surprised by it. I mean, the comment was pretty unremarkable. It had been said the day before by, you know, another male CEO, white male CEO, and it was a nothing to me. But within a matter of probably 24 to 36 hours, I mean, I had security surrounding my home and, you know, my company standing up for me. At the time I was with Walmart, and they fully supported my statement. But it was scary, and it was a reminder that we aren't really as far as I thought we were. And
what was so upsetting?
What was so upsetting was that the personal attacks on me, right? And the personal attacks on my family.
Oh.
And, you know, that's off limits for me. And it reminded me that there's hate. It reminded me that I am different. And if I say something, it is viewed as different, even though it could be word for word. And for a second, it made me angry, you know, fearful first for my life, angry second. And then I settled with it and decided, once again, this is why you are where you are.
Wow. You said fearful for your life.
There were death threats. And they were, you know, published, and they were, you know, could have been real. And, but luckily, you know, I had great people around me, and that always matters. And I'm grateful for those individuals.
I do feel, it does seem like you were put in these positions and situations. And do you believe it's kind of, I mean, divine? Do you think that there's some divinity here?
You know, I do think it is, because it's not, you know, I'm not on that mission, right? It would be different if I were an activist for a living. I'm not. I just, you know, I'm somebody's mom, I'm somebody's wife, and I'm somebody's leader. But I'm not that activist. So I feel like this is divine order.
You go to Starbucks and you have you have an incredible run as COO, and you have a whole bunch of other fancy titles, but you're a big deal there. And when you step into Starbucks, there was a situation that grabbed headlines everywhere, of course, and
Yes.
that was those two African-American men being arrested for loitering or whatever they called it.
Yes.
But you dove into that one head first because to you it was personal.
It was very personal. These two gentlemen, as soon as I heard what happened, you know, I saw pictures and I saw these two young men, and what really struck me was they were the same exact age as my son John. And I knew right away that I had to dive into this one. This one was deeply personal. This could have happened to him. And these two young men look so innocent to me because I'm so used to seeing African American males just having a great day, right? I know what that looks like, and I could see it in their face. And I knew also that this happened on my watch, and I had to take control of the situation, and I had, you know, a great team with me, but you know, it was a time for me to step up and admit that we had done something probably that needed correcting. Our policies were not updated. Our store manager acted too early, too soon, and I felt like it was my fault. I felt like, did we train well? Are our policies up to date? You know, people sit for a minute, right? That's how we are now. You know, we congregate, and it's okay. And business deals are done in coffee shops. But our policies were probably 10 or 12 years old and behind the thinking of what happens inside our buildings.
COOs and directors and VPs don't usually say they're sorry when something goes wrong. They usually don't, but you guys did. Immediately said we were sorry because we created a situation that could have ended up a lot worse. Wow. What'd your son say?
Well, he texted me right away because, you know, this hit Black social media before it hit anywhere else. And so he knew right away. And he texted me, he said, "Mom, you have to get after this right away." I mean, and when you hear his voice, and I'm already thinking about him,
Yes.
you know, that mother thing
Yes.
comes in, and
Yes.
it just takes over you.
Wow. That's that right there. And you shut down stores, you did
We did.
training. I mean, there was a whole...
We did. We shut down all of our stores. We did a day of training, and that wasn't the only work that we did. I mean, it went on from there, training every month, and still happens today at Starbucks on this very subject around looking at unconscious bias.
I'm thinking about where we are today in our world, and I feel like there's a real kind of racial reckoning that's happening. It's a very significant moment. Where do you think corporate America fits into that?
You know, I don't think corporate America is immune to it. I think that the work that needs to happen is going to come from a process of the private sector and the public sector coming together. You know, many businesses are retailers. You know, we have physical units where things happen. You know, we're in communities. You know, if you are a great company, you take care of the communities that take care of you the most. And so I think companies are going to have to engage, and they are. I've seen many companies step up. I'm really proud of a lot of the work that's going on, but we're not done yet by any means.
So, and I feel like corporate America sometimes leads the way. It's sort of like change happens because corporate America kicks it off.
Right. You know, this past summer, you know, during the middle of the pandemic, everything that happened, I had so many other fellow COOs, CEOs call me and say, "What do you think? What can I do?" And, you know, I was actually overjoyed by that, right? It gave me a chance to tell them what I was really thinking. It gave me a chance to help. And I took all of those calls, and you know, companies that I didn't even have any relationship with, because I saw something different in these leaders that wanted to help and engage, and I thought I could maybe help them.
You are the first African American woman on so many of these things. Like I can't even keep track of all of them. It's like first African American woman to be a president of this or of that, of all these companies and corporations. When do you think that is going to be old news, that there's an African American in charge? Can you actually see that day?
No, I can't wait. I can't wait. You know, I really think that, you know, if I sit here and continue to hear the word first, you know, I'm going to blame myself for that. You know, this can't be. You know, this just can't be. And I just hope that I'm bringing people along with me on this journey. that I'm mentoring and sponsoring and giving people opportunity, and the work I do here at Spelman, helping women graduate, that's part of it, because it's not a prideful moment when you hear that verse. I mean,
That's interesting.
It's really not. It's not, especially because I've been at this for a while, and so I would have hoped that we are at a better place, and we're not. So I just feel like I still have work to do.
Hey, thanks for watching our YouTube channel. Find your favorite recipes, celebrity interviews, uplifting stories, shop our favorite deals, and so much more with the Today app. Download it now.